Hey, what's up? Welcome back to another edition of the Mandatory Live, our last show for 2024. We're going to give out some awards. But before we get into all of that, if you've been rocking with the show, thank you so much. If you haven't already hit that like and subscribe button, please do. It helps the channel grow. You can also follow us on our social media channels. We're at the Mandatory TKO. You can find us on the audio side as well. So wherever you find your podcast shows, and if you got a couple of minutes, maybe leave us a rate and review because that always helps as well. Bryan, final show of 2024. Can you believe it? We've almost been doing this for about 2 years now. Like, it's gone by hella fast. Crazy.
And our first award show, which we did not do last year. We're doing it this year. We're very excited about it. We have a bunch of awards. We also have a few customized awards. Like, there are specific awards that Shantelle has that she's going to give out. There are specific awards I have that I'm going to give out. And there may be awards that we sort of throw out across the show, like as this progresses. And if you're watching in the comments, you could leave some award ideas you have, or if you have a different candidate in mind for something along those lines. But we have some fun stuff planned, and let's do it. Let's recap what was I would say a good year in boxing in 2024, fight wise at least. I mean, tons of controversy, but a good year, I guess.
No, for sure, guys. And by the way, it is an interactive show. So already seeing some comments. A very good friend of the show, Jesus, is on here. Thank you, Jesus, for joining us during the holidays. He said, Merry Christmas. Also, you got to say it in the Spanish way too. Feliz Navidad. Also, shout out to our friend of the show, Alex. Hello, happy holidays. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. We know it's a Saturday night. There's college football on. So we appreciate you being on with us. And if you're watching this after, still leave your comments if you don't agree with an award that we give out. Bryan and I have separate lists. Some of them might be the same. But Bryan, I think we can get started now because you were mentioning it was a pretty good year for boxing, man. Just quick, like real quick, what was your thoughts on the year that we had in boxing?
To not make this go on for too long, I will say, like, we got a good amount of fights. There were a couple fights that we've been wanting for a while that finally happened. In 2 fights between Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury, and also Dmitry Bivol, Artur Beterbiev finally got it on. We also saw like PBC kind of slipping a little bit in terms of the amount of cards they're putting out, so to speak. The Saudis are centralizing things more out there, so that's kind of weird because now we're getting a lot of fights over there as opposed to other places where there are more boxing fans. And then in like just other promotions are just kind of in limbo if they're not working with the Saudis right now. So it's an interesting time right now. Jesus says it's a down year. I would say, like, you could argue that. I think the fights itself, like, there's been a lot of interesting fights. Yeah. There are prospects that are coming along, but I do think, like, I have questions about where we're going in terms of promotionally and how this is going to move forward. The monopoly on the sport, so to speak. But I don't know if that's a big picture conversation we're going to have in this episode, whereas it's probably something we're going to open 2025 with.
Yeah, you know what? We should probably open with that in 2025 and not waste too much time on it tonight because it's our first award show ever, the Mandatory. We're giving out our end of year awards. And of course, if you don't agree with it, let us know. Drop it in the comments. We have some very, very good categories. Bryan, I think we got to start off with the number one category, though, this year. And I don't think it's a surprise. So that's why I kind of want to go with this one first, because I feel like a lot of people would have the same one. And to me, it's probably one of the best awards that we could probably hand out because we'll get to the funnier ones later. Fighter of the Year. I want to go Fighter of the Year right away.
Fighter of the Year? Okay. So we're going to go, I put Boxer of the Year because Fighter of the Year, that's for the MMA people. We're getting,
you're right.
I'm kidding. but like, no, I did put Boxer of the Year because for whatever reason, we call this Fighter of the Year. Like, for like Ring Magazine has done it historically, and all these websites, boxes. I don't know why we just don't say Boxer of the Year if that's what we're actually talking about. So yeah,
boxers are fighters, but I like Boxer of the Year better. But I'm so used to saying Fighter of the Year because that's usually how it's done. But over here at the Mandatory, we switch things up.
Okay. I think this one, it's right to go with it first because we kind of know, like, there's really one answer to this. And we can give it off the top. Jesus lets us know that Usyk should be the Fighter of the Year. So Jesus, you are right. We both have Alexander Usyk. We're not going to agree on every award. We're going to go one by one as we progress, but we both have Alexander Usyk. Can you, Chantel, tell us why that is? I feel like I'm going to agree with you on every point.
Well, I think everyone could probably argue before the first fight earlier this year that we were all wondering who was the best heavyweight in the world, and Tyson Fury's name would come up often. Alexander Usyk, we know what he did against Anthony Joshua, and they go into this fight, and I believe a lot of people had Tyson Fury as the favorite. Alexander Usyk was coming in as the smaller guy. And listen, if you had Fury winning going into that fight, I don't think anyone would have hated on you, because for a very long time, he's been known as to be one of the greatest heavyweights right now. And Alexander Usyk gets it done in the first fight. And then in the second fight, does it convincingly. Like, you beat one of the best heavyweights in the world twice in 1 year. Fighter of the year for me. And his performance in the second fight just really gave him fighter of the year for me, because he did it so convincingly and he got better in that fight. So Alexander Usyk, fighter of the year for me, Brian. And that was my reason why. What about you?
Let's also remember he was the underdog in the first fight and wasn't even that big of a favorite in the second fight against Tyson Fury. So he beat somebody who I thought was the best heavyweight in the world twice. Now, I gave the title to Usyk after the first fight. Like, after you beat Tyson Fury, it's like, all right, you're the best now. Like, you're that dude. Now you got to defend it, because we knew the rematch was coming. And I thought he did better in the second fight than he did the first one. I thought he won by a wider margin. I thought he got it going earlier. Like, he took the fight over really from round 5-6 on, whereas in the first fight I felt like it was round 8 on where he started to dominate. So it was a little bit later in those later stages. He obviously rocked Tyson Fury, scored the knockdown, but I mean, he just looks as unbeatable as anybody right now. Terrence Crawford looked just okay in his last fight. Thought he still won pretty convincingly, but he looked just okay. It was one of the weaker Terrence Crawford performances we've seen, probably the weakest Terrence Crawford performance we've seen in years. So age is a question and all these different things. I didn't have him as a serious candidate for the award. And then you have Naoya Inoue,
Of course.
who, I mean, he looks awesome, but he did get dropped by Luis Neri. And I'm not going to hold that against him, but because you can get dropped, come back. Like, we're actually going to talk about this for another category later on, because there are multiple instances where this happens. But like, in looking at just the landscape of fighters, and there are a couple honorable mentions that I do legitimately have, but they're honorable mentions in just honorable mention name and respect only. Alexander Usyk was a clear number one. And as you texted me earlier, like, there's not really a number two. And I'm like, yeah, he's kind of on an island by himself.
I do want to say, though, for the Bud fight, even though it wasn't the most impressive Bud fight, he still dominated. Like, I let him win 8 rounds of that fight. Like, he still had a very good fight, but he's not fighter of the year, because Alexander Usyk did it twice against Fury. Naoya Inoue, like, he's always going to be a contender, because if you look at the pound for pound list, like, we know how good he is. I think if he would have fought Sam Goodman and destroyed him, maybe I would have had like a different outlook at the end of the year, but I still think it's hard not to put Alexander Usyk as fighter of the year. And then when you also put in everything else that was going on outside of boxing in terms of the world, what's going on in the Ukraine, like, it's just really amazing what he accomplished, and he's rapping for Ukraine really hard. So, you got to love that aspect of it. Brian, I do want to go to a comment.
Yes.
Because I think this is a very good one. Our friend of the show, Alex Alberto G, says, hot take, Artur Beterbiev is my 2024 boxer of the year. Destroyed Callum Smith and beat Bivol. Usyk beat the same opponent twice. So here's the thing, Alex. I feel like even though I bet Beterbiev to win by decision, and I was right, and the odds were like plus 700, and I won some bread that day, I think Bivol won that fight. Genuinely. And so for me, I know people are like, there's no way. Like, Beterbiev won. But for me, on my scorecards, I had Bivol winning. And so for me, even though Beterbiev got it done, and yes, like, that Callum Smith win was really impressive too. Trust me, I'm a Beterbiev fan. I'm not mad at you for putting him for boxer of the year, no doubt about it. But I also think it's really tough to beat one of the best heavyweights in the world twice. Like, that's really impressive to me, right? Because the first time you have your fight, you gather information on that first fight. You come back in the second fight, and he could have had a total different game plan. But that's what was impressive to me, was that Usyk, like, dominated that second fight, in my opinion. So that's why, I kind of went with Usyk. But I'm not mad at you saying Artur Beterbiev. I mean, to beat Bivol, And listen, that's impressive. That's what the scorecard said. So, you know what, Alex? I love your comment. Bryan, your thoughts on this, on Archer Better BF being the Boxer of the Year, which I think many people might have actually.
Yeah, not for me because I thought Bivol won that fight. And let's Artur Beterbiev ultimately won the fight, like to the judges, to two of them at least. And I think because of that, you have to consider him because he did win the fight technically, but it was
Yeah.
also very close. I don't think Usyk left a ton of doubt, especially in the second fight. In the first fight, it was a split decision, but I think there's not really a case for Tyson Fury seriously winning that fight. And in this one, again, Tyson Fury, like he did pretty well in those first 5 rounds, but you could still argue even Usyk was still up 3-2 after that. And then beyond that, Usyk, I mean, might have swept every round or at least won all but one, maybe two tops. Like I had it 8 rounds to 4 in totality, and there are people who watched the fight who had it even wider than that. So I think Usyk, I mean, he beat the same opponent twice, but that same opponent was the best in the heavyweight division for the last few years. Beat Vladimir Klitschko a long time ago, like, and after coming back from stuff in 2018. He's been that dude in the heavyweight division basically since the Deontay Wilder trilogy. So for Alexander Usyk to come up from the cruiserweight division, take him out, like it was a no contest for me. That
Yeah.
Usyk was a fighter
But
of the year,
you know
boxer
what,
of the year.
Alex? I think a lot of people might also agree with you and give better B of that as well. Quickly to IMPK13 because he's a very good friend of the show. He said,
Huh.
IMPK13 for best friend of the show. You're definitely a candidate. You know, you're definitely one of our day ones.
We gotta
IMPK13
have a
been rocking with
tournament for
us.
that.
Yeah,
Maybe
for
this is a March Madness thing we do.
for sure. But we appreciate you joining us. All right, Bryan, let's get to the next award. I'll let you pick the
IMPK
next
might
award.
be a IMPK might be a 1 seed in that tournament.
For
We'll have to
sure. For
determine that.
sure.
Usually one of the first ones, although Jesus will also give him a run for his money.
Yeah.
And hopefully some more will show up here. Let's go to. Do we want to go to an obvious one, or do we want to go to something where we're actually going to have like differing opinions?
Let's
You-
go. Yeah, because I think this one is going to be a little bit different. Prospect of the year. Well,
Prospect of the year.
oh, I should have let you pick. I said I was going to let you pick, and then I just
We should
started
let's do no.
dominating the conversation.
Let's do prospect of the year because we got to get the young dudes out the way. Because there are some interesting conversations we're going to have as it pertains to knockout of the year and fight of the year in
Yes.
particular. Where I don't think we're going to agree. Prospect of the year. Let's do it. I didn't feel like there were a ton of prospects that like really wowed me, and to me, the criteria for this, like you have to be somewhat active. I feel like even in this new
Yeah.
generation, you should have at least like 4-ish fights this year or something along those lines. And there were a lot of prospects who are coming up who are impressive that I was looking through, and they fought twice, they fought 3 times, they beat somebody who was like 8-9. You know what I mean? In like a
Yeah.
very recent fight. So I actually struggled with this one a little bit.
I did too, because I was going to go with my pick from last year because he was active. And then I switched it like last minute. But I still want to mention him because I think that he had a great year, but he's not the winner. He's honorable mention. And I think people will look at me and be like, "You're being biased." Like, okay, maybe I am. Who cares? Emiliano Vargas, because as big fan of his pops, but he was supposed to fight as well in December in Arizona. It didn't happen. He still fought 4 times this year. His last 3 fights he won by knockout or a TKO. He's 12-0, 10 by knockout. I mean, he continues to impress. I know what people will say, well, look at his record, look who he's fighting. But usually when you're coming up, you're not fighting like a big name after big name. But I do think Vargas is one of those guys that is going to, be a champ at some point. But he's been dominating in his fights. He's so fun to watch. And I think he's an absolute superstar. But for myself, I switched it last minute because Emiliano Vargas was my prospect of the year last year. And I was like, I can't have the same prospect like back to back, even though I'm a big fan. I'm rocking with Abdullah Mason. 16-0, 14 by knockout. And as you guys know, when he fought Johan Vasquez, he was dropped in that fight. He got dropped in that fight, right?
I
He
think
was down
twice.
twice in round
Yes.
one. And then also Vasquez was down as well. But Mason came back in that fight, was so impressive. This kid is an absolute superstar, and I cannot wait to see more from him. So fun to watch. So my prospect of the year is Abdullah Mason. If you guys disagree, drop something in the comments. Bryan, who's your prospect of the year?
This one was really tough. IMPK, I'm going to get to your comment in a second because I think that's a great question, and we could like basically briefly break down our criteria before we get to the next category. I also went with the top ranked prospect, but this one was very close because there was a non-top ranked prospect that really it's 1A, 1B for me, but I'm not gonna give a tie. I'm just gonna give it to Richard Torres Jr. because of how impressive he looks at the heavyweight division. 4 wins this year, all by knockout, except there was a disqualification in which Joey DeWedge probably just kind of didn't want to be there like that because it looked like he was just spitting out his mouthpiece over and over, which is why he got DQ'd. But Richard Torres Jr. stepped up, beat an undefeated heavyweight in Brandon Moore, which is a very, very fun fight, knocked him out in the 5th round. And he obviously beat Isaac Munoz Gutierrez in his last fight. This was earlier this month in December. Got him out of there 3rd round, won the NABF heavyweight title. So like he's moving up in the rankings right now. He's up to 12-0, 11 knockouts. And I think he's somebody who's going to be a champion. I don't know if he's going to be necessarily like unbeatable or whatever. Like I have questions about how the size will translate. And it's a different style than say an Alexander Usyk who can make that work at that size. But Richard Torres Jr., his work rate is ridiculous. Defensively, I do feel like he's gotten better. And I think he looks like a future heavyweight champion. I always said this on this show, and Shantelle said this as well. We both kind of liked him more than Jared Anderson as a prospect. While Jared Anderson was being pushed, we both felt like he was pretty flawed. And what happened to him against Martin Bacoli, which was this year, like we kind of saw that coming in terms of somebody's going to do that. Somebody's going to exploit him in that way. I think Richard Torres Jr. is smarter and is going to be able to stay out of that for a little bit longer. He did get knocked out silly in the amateurs by Bakhtir Jalalov, but has made a lot of strides since. And he was also very young when they fought. I feel like if they fought in the pros now, Jalalov would be, I think he'd be looked at as the favorite still, but I think it'd be a much, much more competitive fight than that point. And when they did rematch later on, it was still more competitive. I think that was actually in the Olympic final. So for me, Richard Torres Jr. And then I just want to shout out like right behind him for me. And I almost feel disrespectful by saying behind him because it was right there. But Moses Itama from Britain via Slovakia, I believe. Heavyweight that if you've been watching some of the Riyadh cards, because he's been on there, he's looked very impressive in the heavyweight division. And he looks like he's going to be super competitive in the heavyweight division pretty soon. He's actually younger also. He's about 20 years old at this point. So both him and Richard Torres Jr. look like that's maybe a heavyweight title fight that we can get 5 years from now, maybe even less than that. So I think both of them are great. And I also, like you, had Abdullah Mason high on my list.
Yeah, so IMPK13 asked, and we'll get to this really quickly, what is the fight limit for a prospect? Bryan, when you're looking at your criteria and thinking about a prospect, like what is your fight limit in terms of fights? I'm guessing that he's had a year, or in terms of like what his record is.
For me, it's not about record as much as it is where you are.
Yeah.
Because like Andy Cruz, for example, already looks like he's past prospect level because of the way they're pushing him.
And also because he like when you think about Andy's career and you think about the fact that he's a Cuban boxer, like he's gonna get a title shot way sooner than you're gonna see a young prospect, right? Yeah. And he's ready for it. Like, let's be serious.
Like guys are just pushed at different levels, so it really varies from boxer to boxer. Like Keyshawn Davis doesn't have that many fights, but he's clearly not a prospect anymore. He was prospect level maybe last year. This year, he opens the year fighting like Jose Pedraza. You're fighting Jose Pedraza, you're not really a prospect anymore. He's highly ranked at this point as a contender, which these other guys aren't yet.
I wanted to ask you, would you still say Troy Isley is a prospect? Because he was the co-main on the Keyshawn Davis card, and we've seen him fight a lot this year. Would you still consider him a prospect? Because I think if he was considered a prospect, I think he's like in between of like a prospect and like not being a prospect.
Yeah, like for example, like Xander Zayas is not a prospect anymore, but
exactly
because he's already won like a couple of like regional titles, so to speak. Troy Isley, though, I gave it consideration too, just because like he's ranked, but he's not like super highly ranked. He's number 6 by the WBO in middleweight. I think it's fair to look at him as well in this category. But to me, I think with Richard Torres Jr., there's a more obvious case. But I think Troy Isley, and I mean, he's in a division that I think he could have some success in, because we talked about the middleweight division, and I think Troy Isley, I want to see him against Johnny Beck. I legitimately do. Let's get to this comment. Alex Alberto G, prospect of the year, Carmel Moten. I want to see more from him. He might be the betting favorite to be prospect of the year for me next year. Honestly, I feel like it's like a year too early though. We haven't seen a ton from him, but he obviously looks very impressive, and he's somebody else who could be moved up pretty quickly. So
I think they're gonna push him pretty hard.
yeah.
Because I think he has like that superstar energy around him, and a lot of people are rooting for him, and he seems exciting. So yeah, I think next year he could definitely be prospect of the year. Bryan, I think we should move on to our next award. What do you think?
Yeah, and I will echo this. The Paul Bamba shit.
Yeah,
He fought like 14 times this year, or 13 times this year, like ridiculous amount. So I wonder what's going to be revealed there. But RIP, and saw Neo post about it too. I thought that was nice. Also Puerto Rican, from New York. So obviously that hit home a little bit. Okay, let's get to upset of the year, because I think this one, I thought this one would be obvious, but it doesn't look like you're going to have the same one as me. I have the obvious one.
I mean, so. I think is it Jaime Munguia or not?
I have Jaime Munguia.
Okay. Yeah, Jaime Munguia getting knocked out by a dude that only had 4 knockouts before.
Bruno Sarase, yep.
And the way that Sarase knocked him out, like you could see that Jaime didn't see it, but unexpected. Imagine if you put your money on Sarase, like you would have won tons of money. Jaime Munguia was supposed to be a tune-up fight for him. So to me, that's upset of the year. And then it also took him out of the conversation of fighting an Edgar Berlanga. He's no longer in that conversation. He has to have another fight like against a guy like Sarase. Win that, like, and have a statement performance, and then maybe we'll have that conversation again. But it's funny. I do want to say this. We had a comment on that when we broke it down on a show earlier, and someone's like, I don't understand why you guys are saying like it's the biggest upset of the year and all this stuff, but it's like he was a favorite, dude. And
no. He was one of the biggest favorites of the, like, he was a minus 3,000 favorite. And to me, betting is a big part of this particular award, because if you look at what was the biggest upset in recent memory in terms of just straight gambling, Anthony Joshua was like a 42-1 favorite to beat Andy Ruiz, and Andy Ruiz knocked him out. Like, we don't get a lot. Ramla Ali was I forget what the number was, 14, 18-1, something like that, but large favorite before she got knocked out in a fight. I believe it was last year. Like, this magnitude of victory rarely happens. And to me, when this happened, it was like, we have our upset of the year. It's not even close. He was a 30-1 favorite and got knocked out in Mexico, where he's from, by a guy with 4 career knockouts, Bruno Sarase, heading into that fight. Like, this is easy. And to me, the biggest upset since that Anthony Joshua, Andy Ruiz fight.
Yeah. I don't have much else to say about this. I mean, he got knocked out cold, and he got tucked in for a nap. And I hadn't said that all year. And it happened to Jaime Munguia by someone that he should have dominated and put on a performance. Very upsetting. But hopefully he can rebound from this, and we'll see more from him next year. But disappointed that the talks between, Munguia, Berlanga, kind of dead now, to be honest, kind of dead. And that's like the Mexico-Puerto Rico rivalry. I wanted to see it. Don't want to see it anymore. And I hate to say it, but Berlanga has the upper hand here, and he's right. Like, we're not talking about that fight right now.
Yeah. Berlanga still has, like, he can still go get a Gabriel Rosado or Trevor McCumbee. Like, he can still get a good fight.
Tough fights too, yeah.
Caleb Plant is the one that I want to see him fight. But if there's a win to be had before that, coming off the Canelo fight, like, I think it's fine to not go right into Caleb Plant after losing to Canelo Alvarez.
No, that you need a tune-up fight. But speaking of Edgar Berlanga, I think we got to get to this award next, Bryan, because of course he had a pretty good knockout this year.
Well, hold on. Osman 3001 chimes in on upset of the year. You asked me about this fight.
Yeah.
He says Devin Haney getting cooked by a coked up racist Ryan Garcia.
I agree. Like, it's funny because Bryan and I were talking about this like earlier. We were sending voice notes, and I was like, "Yo, I think I would put Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia." Like, it was a massive upset, but the steroid thing maybe not put it into the award show.
Honestly, even if that counted and there was no contest and he got the win, I still think Jaime Munguia is a more shocking upset to me.
No, honestly, if it wasn't the steroid thing, I would
You
have
would have
put
gone.
Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney because it was one of the biggest upsets in boxing that we've seen in like the longest time, dude. Like it was massive, right? You talk about Devin Haney being undisputed at 135 pounds, moving up to 140. We never thought we would see him lose like that. And despite the fact that steroids were involved, like doesn't matter how much it doesn't matter how much he had in his like body or any of that. It's just like what we saw, like we'll never forget. Like I'm never
Yeah.
gonna forget what we saw that night. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's like unless Devin Haney comes back and like we don't know how he's gonna look. So it sucks that there were steroids involved in that fight, man. Like it absolutely sucks.
Yeah. And he's maybe I was gonna say unless he's in the Bay Area, but maybe even if he's in the Bay Area, I think Devin Haney's gonna get just booed tremendously in his next fight. Like dudes just can't stand this guy now. There's a lot of people that can't stand Ryan Garcia either. I mean,
Well, yeah, I think there's more. I think it's perfect. Like let's see a rematch between those two.
I will
Right.
say,
I like this one. I like this one. IMPK 13, Ryan Garcia for least valuable player.
Honorable mentions for upset of the year, real quick. I did like a nod to Daniel Dubois versus Anthony Joshua, even though I picked that one. That's still a big upset. Angelo Leo knocking the fuck out of Luis Lopez.
Yes.
Holy shit. We may break that up in knockout of the year, but oh my god, that was a pretty significant upset. And Liam Paro versus Subriel Matias.
Yes, 100%. But I also feel like, yeah, you know what? I think the Subriel Matias and Liam Paro one to me was probably one of the biggest upsets of the year for sure. That's number 2 for me because it was in Puerto Rico. Like I was waiting for the robbery to come through. You know what I mean? Like that's what I was waiting for. I'm like, there's no way they're gonna let him lose. Like I'm not even tripping about this. Boom, scorecards come out and the judges were fair. Like, what are the chances? You know, if there's one robbery this year, it should have been there.
There were a bunch more than that. We're going to get to that, actually. That's a category.
Yeah.
All right. You wanted to tee up knockout of the year. We're both going to have different ones for sure. Yeah. You go first.
Well, for me, it has to be Daniel Dubois and Anthony Joshua. The way that Daniel Dubois knocked out Anthony Joshua, like what we saw in that fight, distinctively beat him down, that was crazy. I think Daniel Dubois, to me, takes it for knockout of the year against Anthony Joshua. We've never seen Anthony Joshua lose like that ever. We've seen him lose, but not like that, Brian. Daniel Dubois takes it, and now he's in conversation of being in a fight again against Alexander Usyk. Like the rise of Daniel Dubois and just his performance in knocking out Anthony Joshua, the pictures were crazy. Like you see those pictures of Anthony Joshua's face?
Yeah.
It's
I've used them.
Knockout of the year for me. Yeah. What about you? What's your knockout of the year?
Oh, this was the hardest category for me. I have like 10 knockouts written down, legitimately. I have an entire top 10. And I've also changed my mind on this multiple times. But I'm really going to go with Osles Iglesias knocking out Evgeny Shvedenko in a fight in Montreal. It was the first round knockout in June, where Shvedenko just eats a right hook that doesn't even look super powerful and just goes into a seizure. Like his legs and arms are just kicking out. It looks really, really bad. It was scary. Iglesias, I just want to talk about him also briefly. Like Cuban dude, super middleweight, beat David Morrell in the amateurs. This dude is scary. IBO champion right now. So not an IBF, not like a real world champion yet, but he is on his way. And I want to see if this dude can get to David Morrell, David Benavidez. Like, I know they've both moved up to like heavyweight. This guy has power that can translate. He's 13-0 with 12 knockouts. If you haven't seen this knockout, you have to see it. Osles Iglesias, like he has legitimate power. I think he's going to be a champion at some point. Still only 27 years old. And a little bit past the prospect stage because, I mean, you're an IBO champion already, even though it's not one of the 4 major like belt organizations. Like, you're not a prospect at that point. So I didn't consider him for prospect of the year, but this knockout was ridiculous. And Shvedenko's reaction to it was like, you were very, very concerned about his health. Like this was a ridiculously hellacious knockout.
Yeah. It's one of those knockouts where I didn't want to mention it because it was so scary.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things where I'm like, you know, I don't want to touch that, to be honest with you, but it was brutal. Like if you haven't seen it, go check it out. The footage is kind of hard to watch, to be honest with you. So I went with Dubois instead.
Shevchenko's okay, so
Yeah,
we can at least like bring it up, and he has fought and won since. So there's that at least. If
some
if he yeah,
positivity there. We like that.
admittedly, if he didn't, I might not have gone down this road. But Iglesias, like y'all have to watch him. He's really. I hope he gets like proper promotion at some point. He's really good,
Yeah,
legitimately.
definitely someone to watch out for. Drop your comments down for knockout of the year who you have, and obviously we'll be reading those comments as well. Brian, what?
So many good knockouts this year, man.
Yeah,
I almost went with Lucas Body versus Aston H2O Silv. You know what I mean? Where that was like another
yeah.
shocking one, like an upset one. Like there's just you mentioned
Clarissa Shields had a knockout this year. Moving up to
That's right.
heavyweight, like there were some good knockouts this year. Some really good ones. But
We mentioned Sarase, we mentioned Dubois, we mentioned Angelo Leo. There's another
yeah,
fight that I'm not going to mention yet because I'm going to get to that in a different category. Zhilei Zhang,
yes,
Deontay Wilder. Unfortunately, I really
yeah,
like Deontay Wilder, but like that has to be in this category. Like there's so many. Tank Martin also.
yeah. Very, Tank. You're gonna rely on him to get that knockout. But Brian, any final thoughts before we move on to the next award?
Yeah, let's get to Alex's comment real quick. Alex says, knockout
Ooh,
of the year,
oh my
Fabio
god.
Wardley in the rematch
Yo,
against Fraser Clark.
it was so tough that I was like, oh my god. When
Yeah.
I saw that was disgusting. Like usually I don't get disgusted watching like those type of knockouts, but it was one of those ones where I had to look away. Like I had to look away watching that one. That was brutal.
By the way, a lot of people are given their first fight consideration for fight of the year, which was a heavyweight banger. If you haven't seen it, Fabio Wardley's gonna have an interesting 2025 because there are some options for him. I think, assuming that things continue to go well, he can find himself in some big fights in the future.
All right, Brian, you get to pick the next category.
Okay, we're gonna go with robbery of the year because we're gonna save fight of the year because we're both probably gonna come out of left field for fight of the year.
So yeah, I mean, there's a few that I think could definitely be mentioned. I'm gonna go with Richardson Hitchens and Gustavo Lemos.
Wow.
Richardson Hitchens did not win that fight. That was one of the biggest robberies I've ever seen, and you could tell he didn't win a lot of rounds in that fight. He wasn't busy enough in that fight. He was not busy enough. To me, that was one of the biggest robberies, and I thought it was an absolute disgrace. And now he's a world champ at 140 pounds. So I guess it does not matter, and that's boxing. But I mean,
Styles make fights.
to me, it was probably one of the biggest robberies, and he didn't win that fight to me. I've watched that fight back like 5 times.
Really?
He did not win that fight, dude. There, like, and I had to like rewatch it. Like, how did he win this fight? Pure robbery. I feel bad. That's just tough luck. Brian, your robbery of the year.
Question real quick. Do you think Hitchens got better from this fight, used it, and then beat Liam Paro, like legitimately improved after that fight against Lemos, like learned something from it? Or do you think he just got a more favorable stylistic matchup and was able to box his way to the title?
What I think is that they gave him that win. Like the judges gave him that win, and it is what it is. Like it happens in boxing, right? Like if you look at every fighter's resume, every fighter has that fight on the resume where you're like, yo, I don't know if he won that fight.
Literally
You
everyone.
know what I
It's
mean?
true.
So I can't really hate on it because it happens in boxing so much. And yes, okay, Mark, okay, like I'm this one is kind of true. Robbery could be Arno Barbosa and Sean McComb. And listen, this is something I mentioned to Brian, but I'm not doing any Barbosa. No, I'm not saying anything bad about the Barbosa family. Okay, so it's not going to be on my list. Okay,
It's not my pick. My pick is a Arnold Barbosa is not with Top Rank anymore, but my pick is a Top Rank card. This was a shocking robbery to me. It's shocking that this became a rivalry after because we had to see a rematch. It's Oshaki Rosser versus Hobson Conceição one.
yes. I feel
Oshaki
bad for
Foster.
Foster.
Yeah, Foster. This fight was fucked up, just straight up. Because honestly, I could not believe when they read the cards, which I'm pulling up right now. 116, 112 in his favor, 116, 112 to Conceição, and a 115, 113 to Conceição. And I've rewatched this fight multiple times, and I don't know how you score this for Conceição at all. I don't. I haven't spoken to a single person who has given this fight to Conceição. Legitimately, I haven't spoken to any boxing fan in my life that has given this fight to them. And Oshaki Foster, it sucks because these things change careers. Oshaki Foster should have won that first fight. And a bunch of us were very excited about, hey, he wins this. Can he get Emmanuel Navarrete at the end of the year? Instead, Emmanuel Navarrete gets the rematch with Oscar Valdez and beats the shit out of Oscar Valdez to the point where we're all saying, like, Oscar Valdez maybe should retire now. And it was a rematch that we shouldn't have gotten to begin with. But, you know, the belt organizations were very persistent that this fight would happen next and insisted upon a rematch of a fight that was very one-sided the first time and even more one-sided in a dangerous way the second time. So Oshaki Foster gets this decision in the rematch, and now we'll see if we can finally get that fight with Emmanuel Navarrete, because as soon as he signed with Top Rank, we circled, okay, Emmanuel Navarrete, that's the fight that they're going to try to set this up for, which still hasn't been the case despite the fact that he's been with Top Rank for a little bit over a year now at this point. By the way, fought 3 times and was active this past year, so good for Oshaki Foster. We'd love to see champions and championship level fighters do that, but this is a gross robbery. He got the respect in the rematch, and even that was a split decision where it was 115, 113 twice in his favor and a 115, 113 for Conceição. Admittedly, I actually do think he may have performed better in that first fight, but I thought he clearly won both fights.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people will have that for robbery of the year, to be honest with you.
I'm not sure.
I think people would, man. It's pretty clear.
I think a lot of people are going to have what Alex commented here.
Yeah, robbery of the year, Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano 2. Katie Taylor, a record 4 robberies of the year. Yeah, you know what's crazy is that I
pursued twice, Serrano twice.
Listen, we've been on record saying this as well, that Bryan and I both had Serrano winning the first fight. We definitely had her winning the second fight, and CompuBox stats prove that Serrano won that fight as well, if you're going to go by that. But yeah, so this is an interesting one.
But Alex mentions this honorable mention: Natasha Jonas getting a hometown decision over Michaela
Close fight. I thought Jonas did enough. Natasha Jonas did enough. But here's the thing: is that I had Michaela Mayer, like I took Michaela Mayer in that fight. Remember when we were betting? I was like, Mayer's going to get it done. And so
I took Jonas.
Yeah.
But remember my reasoning. I said, look, if it's close, she's going to get it. And, you know, because they're in the UK or whatever. By the way, I'm in the minority that doesn't have this being a robbery. I thought a draw would have been more than fair. I thought a draw probably would have been a proper outcome. But I think Natasha Jonas called too much slander for that fight.
No, she won. She won. The thing with women's boxing, guys, is it's 2-minute rounds. Mm-hmm. So they can't separate themselves in a fight. Like, this is an issue, right? Like, make it 3-minute rounds, because when it comes to these championship fights, we're left wondering who won. It's too close. Like, it's always a controversy, and it's annoying.
And Alex, I wanted to bring this up, mentions Natasha Jonas. Also, another close decision that Katie Taylor got, although that one not as debated, but that was very, very close decision that she got over Natasha Jonas as well. So Katie Taylor's gotten some favorable Canelo-like decisions over the course of her career.
They love Katie Taylor.
Yep.
I will say this though, I don't think Katie Taylor should have got booed though. Like, it's not her fault that the judges did that. It's not her fault, dude. Right. And I hated how they booed her, because both these women they're so great for women's boxing, but Serrano did get robbed twice, in my opinion. That was a pure robbery though.
Yeah. All right. Let's do fight of the year. This one is, oh my God, this one's hard.
So there was a bunch of good fights, and let's say our fights of the year and then talk about the honorable mentions after, Bryan, because we had a bunch when we were texting. So my fight of the year is actually a women's fight. Lots of controversy in this one. I've watched this fight I think I've seen it like 6-7 times. I watch it all the time. That's how good it was. It's Michaela Mayer and Sandy Ryan. So much controversy before someone threw some stuff on Sandy Ryan paint.
Paint, yes.
And it was just craziness. The fight was so good. These two women were trading one of the most entertaining fights of the year. I don't think a lot of people will have this as their fight of the year, but it's my fight of the year. These women, and we talked about Michaela Mayer and Natasha Jonas, which is also on my list for fight of the year, to be honest with you. Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor, too. These women are giving us some of the best fights in boxing, and they need to be given their props. But if you haven't seen Michaela Mayer, Sandy Ryan, amazing fight. Absolute amazing fight. I can't get enough of it. I need to see another. Bryan, your pick.
By the way, I was in the building for that fight, but had to leave early because Julius Randle got traded to the Timberwolves in exchange for Karl Anthony Towns. But I did obviously watch it. But that just happened to happen like right before the main event. I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. So I had to go work on my other job. Great fight. One of my favorites. And Al the Pal, we stop what we're doing for donations.
Thank you.
Thank you for the super chat. What the fuck? Just tuning in. Didn't know y'all was popping in. What I missed. Didn't know y'all had the worst day. Yeah, we were toying around with the planet. We scheduled it yesterday. YouTube has to do a better job of just notifying subscribers and shit. I'm going through this in my own channel where I don't feel like my subscribers are knowing what the fuck I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like,
let's not blame it all on YouTube. Bryan and I were arguing throughout the week about when we were going to have this fight. We were legit going back and forth on what days could work.
I'm blaming it on YouTube.
Yeah, let's blame it on YouTube. That's actually better. But we knew we wanted to do this, and like Bryan leaves out of town on Monday, and we tried to do Boxing Day. Didn't work with my schedule, so we were like, we need to do this award show. And, appreciate everyone that joined. Al the Pal, thank you so much for donating to the show. He's donated before as well, so we do appreciate you. Guys, if you want us to be on more often, we do appreciate donations. So thank you so much to everyone that's donated so far this year. Bryan, yeah, I mean, your fight of the year?
Fight of the year. We're going with, I think, a fight that fell under the radar, and a lot of people might not pick this because it happened all the way back in March. We're going with Ray Ford versus Otabek Kalmatov, which is on ESPN.
Dude,
which was a ridiculously good fight. Okay, so if you didn't see this was, I believe it was for the WBA featherweight championship, which Ray Ford then lost to Nick Ball. Love Nick Ball. He's gonna fight TJ Doheny. Did you see this? Also in like March or whatever the case may be. Which I'm like, okay, Nick Ball, that's an interesting fight. Ray Ford in this fight, he was down on 2 scorecards heading into round 12. He was down 106, 103 on 2 scorecards. He had a 105, 104 in his favor. So you do the math, he needs a knockout to win, or just multiple knockdowns and dominate the round. Like he needs to get a 10-7, basically, to have like a draw, a majority draw. He drops Kalmatov late in the 12th round and actually gets the stoppage with 10 seconds to go in a fight where these two are just rocking each other over and over and over again. Ray Ford is trying to box, and at some point he realizes he has to bite down and just go all out and just throw sort of the counter punching out of the window and just go in there. Otabek was bringing it. I thought he had a great performance, and I agree he was ahead coming into the 12th round. I thought Ray Ford needed to stop him, and he did. It's one of those things like you see in movies, and you don't really see it that often in real life, but you see it just enough to keep you coming back. Ray Ford, if the knockout itself was more spectacular and wasn't just a stoppage, it could have been my knockout of the year because of the situation that he was in. But Ray Ford, Otabek Kalmatov, great fight. That was my fight of the year, and it was very close. I had like a bunch of contenders, but this is one that stood out to me because I was going nuts during the 12th round. Nuts.
Yeah, that was a very, very impressive fight. And it was on my honorable mentions. Another one that I had, and I absolutely love this fight. I already named the other ones that I had. Of course, Natasha Jonas and Michaela Mayer was on there. Serrano Taylor too. But I think also I loved Virgil Ortiz and Sergey Bohachuk. That fight was awesome. It was dope. I remember watching it and be like, I can't get enough of this fight. And Virgil Ortiz, that was a fight that, listen, there were people that were worried about Virgil in that fight. He got it done, though. He ended up getting it done. amazing fight, Brian. I absolutely loved it. So that's also on my honorable mentions.
Yeah. Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano too. Mentioned that. You mentioned Michaela Mayer and Sandy Ryan. Also, we mentioned Natasha Jonas and Michaela Mayer. I thought that was an underrated fight this year. This is partly due to spectacle, but also like we kind of have to throw in. I feel like Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia.
Yo,
Like
yes, it was such a good fight, dude. Like, steroids or not, that was one of the most entertaining fights. I remember, like, I didn't even get to watch that live because I was on the road for TV, and I was like, don't tell me, Brian, whatever you do,
I was
don't.
doing my best.
And I remember, like, it was like it was like the end of the season for a sport, and they were like, oh, you got to come out for drinks after. And I turned off my whole entire phone because I didn't want to do anything. And I just was like, yo, I'm going to go back to my hotel room after and like watch it in peace. That was crazy. That was like, honestly, like, I hate that Ryan Garcia did steroids. I hate it. I hate it because, like, if he actually trained for the fight, because he was drinking beers all week, partying, apparently, like, there was an interview that Devin Haney did with Andre Ward, and Devin's like, I was like getting prepared and training, and all we kept on hearing was that Ryan was bringing girls back to his room. Like, Ryan Garcia did not take that fight seriously, and it's just, man, that you gotta put that on there for sure.
Also, we mentioned Wardley versus Clark one earlier. Tim Zhu versus Sebastian Fundora, which incredible that was this year because it feels so long ago, but that was a war. You mentioned Virgil Ortiz versus Boachuk. I think that's a good one as well. There's just so many. I even think sneakily, like, even though I don't know if this is fight of the year worthy, but like to see Naoya Inoue get pushed in a way by Luis Nery, who we were talking about the power going into that. Osman 3001. Bivol versus Better Biev fight of the year. I've actually seen a couple people rock with this or have this very high up. Great fight, great promo of it. I also
let's not read Alex's comment yet because I'm going to be talking about this fight a little bit later.
Oh, okay. I also hit that plus 700 decision for Arthur Osman 3000.
I just want to say that I did tell everyone to bet on that.
That is true. That was your bet for that fight. Yeah, I still think Bivol should have gotten that one.
But my bank account was happy though.
I love when that happened. Look, I do enjoy being on the right side of a robbery. If it's going to be a robbery, at least make me some bread.
Okay, Al the pal, $5, another $5. Thank you, Al. You're just like donating to the show. It's Christmas. I appreciate this one. It's also dang. If there is a best female boxing analyst, Shantelle is up there for 2024. She knows her shit. Thank you very much, Al the pal. I do appreciate that. I don't.
No argument from me.
I don't take compliments very well, but I do appreciate that.
You fucking don't.
But I do appreciate that. Thank you very much. I'll be better in 2025. Brian, any final thoughts before we move on to the next category?
Yeah, you don't want to mention Alex's comment, and I kind of wonder why. So what do you have up your sleeve before we end this?
Well, because I think we've done like all the main categories, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
so
now
we have
we're doing
some
the fun
special ones.
categories. Yes.
Yeah, now this is one of the categories that I made up, and it was the most heartbreaking fight of the year for me to watch. And that's why I didn't bring up Alex's comment, and we'll go to it now. And he says, Jesse Bam Rodriguez versus Francisco Estrada, El Gallo. I know Bam dominated, but him getting dropped was cinema. I love Bam Rodriguez. Like, anyone that watches this show knows that he's one of my favorite boxers. But to watch El Gallo lose the way that he did, and he was in those wars with Chocolatito, but to see him lose like that against Bam was heartbreaking for me. Like, I remember watching that fight and being like extremely happy for Bam, but so sad at the same time. I was probably a little bit almost as devastated as watching Oscar Valdez lose the way he did last time. Like, it was hard to see Estrada get dropped like that, and like, it was just tough for it. It was one of the most heartbreaking fights for me this year. It's one of those ones where you have a favorite fighter and then you see them lose like that and you're like, man. So to me, as much as that was a great fight, dude, it was tough for me to watch, Brian.
I actually might join this category because I thought of one. There was a fight that also made me feel pretty sad this year, and it was Zhilei Zhang versus Deontay Wilder. Didn't enjoy that.
Brian's a huge Deontay Wilder fan
because really like a defender, just from the standpoint of like a lot of I've said this, a lot of people shit on this dude, and he in a lot of ways revitalized and brought back some excitement in the heavyweight division. He was not technically the best heavyweight in the world. Like you watch him and it's like it was never technically special. But I feel like he was overly criticized for doing things that a lot of other boxers did, which is like just beat who was in front of them. And there are a lot of boxers with resumes that you want to be a little bit better than they are, Gervonta Davis. But like with Deontay Wilder, the knockouts were spectacular. Like there was a time I would have argued this is probably the most entertaining dude in boxing because you know his fights are going to end by knockout up until Tyson Fury, and even that trilogy was ridiculous. Like I think Deontay Wilder just going out like that, it was sad. It was more sad than the Joseph Parker one because Joseph Parker one he didn't want to pull the trigger, and in this fight
Yeah.
it was different because he didn't want to pull the trigger either, but it was against a dude who was going to, whereas Joseph Parker was content with just boxing and like, listen, I'm still going to respect your power because you clearly still have it, and I'm going to just try to negate the fact that you're going to even be able to get to it. But the Zhilei Zhang one, Zhilei Zhang was like, listen, I ain't trying to go the distance either. I've been banged up. I'm in my 40s. Like, I'm trying to get you the fuck out of here. And he did. Zhilei Zhang, by the way, is awesome. But yeah, that Deontay Wilder, if I may join the category, that's
please do. It's a good category, right? Like
yeah.
we all see this as boxing fans, where you see one of your favorite fighters take an L, and it's like devastating. Like I remember I didn't know how to feel after Bam El Gallo, and I remember when Deontay Wilder lost, you were devastated, Brian. You talk about it like once a week sometimes if you can. Like he's done it all year.
Yeah, and it's really it's not even because like, oh, I'm like this Deontay Wilder super fan. It's not that. It's just like I just don't feel like he was appreciated at his peak. And now people I hate when people do this with athletes where we have somebody at their peak, they're overly criticized, and then when the peak is done, the person is trash all of a sudden. You know what I mean? Like this happens to Allen Iverson. This happens to Cam Newton. This
literally happened to Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, it happens with these type of athletes who are flashier, who have big highs and lows, like not always the most consistent, but they have peaks that would rival damn near anyone of their era. Like Cam Newton was an MVP. Russell Westbrook was an MVP actually as well. Allen Iverson as well.
MVP,
and brought a team fucking
a Sixers team that had no business being in the NBA finals go up against the Lakers, and they won the first game convincingly.
Yes.
Like that's that, I think he had like 52 points or something like that in that game. Like he just absolutely went off, and he was the NBA scoring leader. The 76ers were number 1 in the Eastern Conference. Like as you know, you probably tell I'm an Iverson fan, but like, the fall of AI was tough to watch for sure.
And the other thing was Deontay Wilder, like he was gonna fight Alexander Povetkin in Russia. He went to Russia, and Alexander Povetkin popped dirty for a steroid that increases your stamina, which is obviously important in the heavyweight division. Like this happened. And a lot of people that's one of the most overlooked things where people are like, he fought nobody, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, yo, that fight was agreed upon. He went, Alexander Povetkin popped dirty and he didn't fight that. And that was a fight where a lot of people thought, oh, Povetkin's going to expose him, da, 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 da. And it never happened. And around that time, that was in 2018, I was one of the people saying, I think Wilder would knock out Anthony Joshua if they fought. And I will go to my grave saying that if they fought each other at their peak, like right now, might be a different story. Although I have no idea what the fuck that fight would look like now. But that fight should have happened in 2017 or 18 or 19 or 20 or like whatever. I would have rode with Deontay Wilder regardless.
Yeah, tough times as a boxing fan. Let us know what was your most heartbreaking fight. If it was a fighter that you saw that you were devastated to see them lose like that, because you obviously maybe followed their career and liked how they fought. Let us know. Drop it in the comments. Brian, you had a couple of special categories as well. So why don't you get one of them off?
Doof of the year. I actually want to give this to Chase Brown for not scoring that fucking touchdown.
Oh my God, yes.
God damn, I have him on my fantasy team. He doesn't score the touchdown and he gets hurt because he doesn't score the touchdown, and the Bengals scored a touchdown anyway on the next play. Football players, get your touchdown, because when you get your contract extension, they're not going to remember that you fucking went down at the 1. Get your touchdown. All right, doof of the year boxing, Ryan Garcia. No contest for all the things we've already talked about. The steroids, just the shit that he's been doing online, the performative stuff, just he needs to like seriously clean himself up. Like seriously, it was to the point where his family was releasing statements like not condoning his actions, ruined the biggest moment of his career. I don't know what the fuck his return is going to look like. There will be one. I'm not sure if it's going to be sanctioned, and I have no idea what's going to like happen from here. But yeah, he's a doof, so he gets the award.
I don't have any complaints because he definitely was a doof this year, and I continue to hear that over and over again. I thought you were going to say like Drake or somebody, but
if this was a non-boxing show, sure.
All right, let's get
when we do a Patreon someday and we don't talk about just boxing, like
which we're planning to do like later on.
Yeah, if enough people would support that, Al DePal, this is an evergreen.
That's an evergreen one, Al DePal, for sure.
Yeah, didn't he lose to Blair Cobbs this year?
He did.
That's an award, saddest fight of the year. Also, like just Blair Cobbs versus Adrian Broner in terms of like you want a heartbreaking sort of performance. Ugh. Like Don King promoting that also, like that's the cherry on top right there of sad 2024 nonsense.
Mark says flip side of the coin, Devin Haney too. Mark, thank you for that comment.
Mark, you know what's funny? I thought about that. I also thought about Bill Haney for this because like, yo, Bill, bro, like just like stop talking, like just a little bit, like just talk a little bit less. Like it's just, like calm down. Like man, I don't that whole fight. The fact that it still lingers and like it's this cloud.
Can I give a
doof
award too? I
yes,
think I need to give a doof award because I think he deserves it. Teofimo Lopez calling Terrence Bud Crawford a monkey. He's a doof for that.
He's a multiple-time offender.
Yes, and I think he's a doof for that. And I like Teofimo Lopez, but I lost a lot of respect for him. Not only is it, he's a doof for that, that's a racist comment, Teo. Like that's a legit, like I think he gets the ultimate doof award for that.
He's got multiple of them. Osman 3001. Devin Haney losing to Ryan Garcia is my Deontay Wilder heartbreak moment. After the Regis fight, I thought Devin could take on Tank. And now I can't think if he can come back.
The Regis one is a heartbreak of the year.
I was getting ready to mention that, like how he fought against Jack Catterall. But he had some moments in that. Like there was not a moment Deontay Wilder had against Zhilei Zhang and Estrada. Like, Bam is so good. Like Bam was being talked about for Fighter of the Year within the last couple years. And I think some people will have him as a nominee for this category again, but. See, Shantelle, I brought this up to you pre-show. Osman 3001, Devin Haney's girlfriend cheating on him with Young Thug. Brother, I feel for Haney. This brother has to win his next fight. Yes, he has to. If people don't know that story, there's a story going around that Devin Haney's wife. A lot of people didn't even know he was married.
I had no idea. Brian told me like right before we went on. I'm like, Devin Haney has a wife? Like, why didn't I know this? We don't even see this girl anywhere. But I was saying that, it's unfortunate, but like we're seeing this so much right now in social media. Like, I probably shouldn't say this, but it's like women are scandalous too.
Let me say what she said. Because she basically there's a call that leaked that when Young Thug was in jail in 2022, this woman who later became Devin Haney's wife a year later. I presumably they were together at this point. I don't know. But she told Young Thug something to the effect of "You're the only one I want," which apparently that's been addressed. But we're not going to get too deep into that here. Maybe that's a mandatory gossip episode. Which Shantelle, we experimented with that with Clarissa Shields and Pat Poose and Remy Bond. It went well, so we may do some of that.
If you want more than mandatory gossip, y'all, you need to put it in the comments. Our video did actually pretty well, and I'm gonna try to bring it back for 2020-25. But Brian, I think we can move on to the next category because it's kind of based on social media. Because you just mentioned something, so I feel like we got to go to it. Unless you had any final thoughts.
What next category are you referring to?
This is my special category.
Ooh.
Most entertaining social media beef between boxers this year.
Okay.
And listen, I thought it was going to be Clarissa Shields, Remy Ma, the whole Papoose thing, but I actually had a better one. This was the most hilarious stuff that I saw all year long, and it was Shakur Stevenson versus Cameron and Mace. This was the funniest social media beef I have ever seen. If you guys have not seen the clips, like you got Cam and Mace like just roasting Shakur Stevenson, like, dude, your fights are boring. Like, who cares? Like, it was back and forth. Shakur Stevenson was busy on Twitter, like he would not give up. And this was some of the funniest stuff. Like, I think Cam and Mace did like 30 minutes on their show about it, about how he's not entertaining, how he's, and there was back and forth, and they were just beefing. And to me, this takes the award for best social media beef. Shakur Stevenson versus Cam and Mace. It takes the cake for me, Bryan.
I have no disagreement here. I don't think that's a really good one. You could evergreen nominee Clarissa Shields versus everybody. Even today.
Also, Clarissa Shields versus Alicia Baumgartner was fire, yo. Like, it was amazing. There was also Clarissa Shields versus Amanda Serrano. Like, Clarissa legit went at everybody this year, and she needs her own award, man. She needs her own award. We need the Clarissa Shields Award. We're gonna name the Beef Award after Clarissa. We're gonna, like, if we were to give an award, it would be like a statue of Clarissa Shields for the biggest beef award, because she does not play, and she was very entertaining this year. And to be honest with you, that's what boxing needs. Like, you know how many new fans probably came in just off the Remy Ma Papu stuff?
Can I just say, you? I sent this to you today. Okay, this is today. This morning, Clarissa Shields was going at it with people because she has a new movie out on her, which I kind of want to see, because the cast. I mean, Brian Tyree Henry is one of my favorite actors. He's in it. Clarissa Shields says, "Let's talk about it. A whole biopic about my life and my journey in boxing, but only 2 female champions have said anything about it. But y'all love to call me a hater. Fuck out of here. These girls been hating on me. That's why I shine so bright. And still, God gonna always do his big one for me." And then, like, you got a couple, like Michaela Mayer gave her props. Sulem Urbina gave her props. Also says she was proud of her. But a lot of other people are, telling her to shut the fuck up, whatever. I wonder how that movie's gonna do. By the way, like, I'm seeing legitimate commercials on it. Like, it's gonna be great. Basketball games, football games.
I'm trying to go see it tomorrow, so I'll let you know how it is. But that's a big movie for sure.
I don't watch movies like that. I'm more of a documentary type of dude. And I'm familiar, obviously, with Clarissa's story. Been watching her fights, and she was an Olympian even before that, amateur. But, like, because YouTube. But I mean, Clarissa Shields is gonna, like, she's gonna talk, but I mean, she's gonna back it up too. Like, if you really want to be real about it.
Brian, did you have another category, a special category?
Yeah, I have an ass whooping of the year category. This one's probably unfortunate, but I also want to reiterate that this is kind of an I told you so. But a lot of people gave Francis Ngannou a lot of props for the Tyson Fury fight. What I was saying before the Tyson Fury fight, the Tyson Fury was clearly out of shape, wasn't going to take this seriously, showed up overweight. He did. Not in a strategic way that he did for a second Alexander Usyk fight. The second Alexander Usyk fight, he was as heavy as ever, but that was because he wanted to sort of apply that pressure, break him down, yada, yada, yada. And he didn't do those things because Alexander Usyk is that dude. But in the Francis Ngannou fight, like, you can tell when Tyson Fury is being serious and when he's not, because we've seen him enough already. And, like, Francis Ngannou goes to fight Anthony Joshua, and there's people saying, like, oh, Francis Ngannou could do this. Like, Anthony Joshua's not as good as Tyson Fury. He dropped Tyson Fury. And it was like Tyson Fury, like, just slept on the dude, and Anthony Joshua's not going to do that. He takes this is one thing I respect about Anthony Joshua, of the many things I respect about him just as a person. He takes honor very seriously, it appears, and he takes the honor of protecting the sport of boxing very seriously, it appears. And I was like, he's not going to half-ass this effort. He's going to get him the fuck out of there. And oh my God, he destroyed Francis Ngannou. So, ass whooping of the year, Anthony Joshua, even though you lost to Daniel Dubois, and some may argue that should be the ass whooping of the year, I will give it to Anthony Joshua for beating the shit out of Francis Ngannou and reminding people that boxing and MMA, Like the power doesn't translate from MMA to boxing in a way that people think.
It's just different. Like they're totally different. I did say that Francis Ngannou, just because he's a dog, that he might have a chance, because we know AJ a little bit sus with that chin, but AJ destroyed him. Absolutely destroyed him. So my final category. Oof. Actually, I have two more.
This is a good comment, actually. I have one more category.
Oh, yes. Alex has been on fire tonight, guys.
Bakram Murtazayev beating Tim Tszyu, Ash Open of the Year 2024. This is a good one. This is a category, by the way, that could get a lot of good nominees.
Yeah. Al the Pal, because he donated to the show twice. We're gonna read this regardless.
Which one?
Listen, we have to read it, okay? Al the Pal, because he donated. Al's the friend of the show. We're reading his comment, okay?
Why Canelo though?
Because he fucking ran from he ran. He didn't fight. He didn't fight Benavidez, man, and it doesn't seem like he's going to. We're going to see him fight Christian Mbili, maybe. Like, we're not going to see him fight the Mexican Monster, and that's the fight that we want to see, right? So I can, I'm surprised Jesus isn't up in here being like, yeah, Al the Pal, I'm with you. But listen, it seems like he's ducking a little bit. Yeah, so you had your ass whooping of the year.
Do you have a nominee for this, by the way?
No, I don't. Okay. I don't. I think we touched everything on that. I'll move to my next one. Most boring fight of the year.
Oh, this is a good one.
So for me, it was Teofimo Lopez and Jermaine Ortiz.
Wow. That was this year. That was in February.
Yeah, early February. And that wasn't necessarily Teo's fault, but everything coming into it, like the theatrics, the circus show, like Teo is great for boxing and he's such a superstar. And then he gets into the ring and Jermaine Ortiz has, a different type of game plan. And it is a game plan that possibly is way too boring for some people, but it was his game plan and it was a boring fight, Brian. Like, I'm not going to lie. It definitely was a boring fight.
There was a Shakur Stevenson fight this year, wasn't there? No, I'm kidding.
That was another sleeper snooze fest
versus Artem Haratuni. I actually think the Teofimo Lopez fight was more boring than the Shakur one. I thought Shakur actually like pressed and was trying to like showcase more offense in that fight at times, but toward the end it got frustrated because it felt like he could have got Hartunian out of there and he just didn't. It is what it is, and we'll see him in the ring against Floyd Schofield, and I think that'll be more entertaining. Hopefully, at least that's going to be in February. I have a Puerto Rican Fighter of the Year award because I gotta be on brand, and I gotta ride for my peoples here. And Alex mentioned Oscar Collazo earlier. He's actually my winner of this award, Oscar Collazo. Now there are other candidates for this. Obviously, it should honestly be the Amanda Serrano Award for Puerto Rican Fighter of the Year, because you could just Amanda Serrano every year if you wanted to. You can mention Sandra Zayas. You can mention, we're seeing Henry LeBron come along. We're seeing Stephanie Pinheiro. We're seeing Crystal Rosado come along. These are prospects, but still, Oscar Collazo, if you're not watching the minimum weights in boxing, he's the best in the world. He knocked out the person who was the best in the world before him. And ultimately, Oscar Collazo looks like he's going to be a star. The problem is he's 105 pounds. So hopefully people start watching or pay attention to those weight classes. And we'll see if Oscar Collazo moves up and he'll get more fanfare. And I just wanted to rep for my peoples a little bit.
Osman 3001, most boring fight pick. Pick any Shakur fight. He literally should be sponsored by NyQuil. It could be a snooze fest. Listen, we got to see Shakur back in the ring, and hopefully next time he puts on a better performance because he is a really good boxer, but that is the narrative. Brian, do you have a final category? I have one more, but if you have one more, let me know.
You go first.
All right. So this is the biggest win of the year. And what I mean by that is maybe
I thought about this category too, actually.
Yeah, wow, a monumental win for a boxer that was massive.
Yeah.
And this one goes to Arnold Barbosa Jr. beating Jose Ramirez, because to me, now we know that he's in that conversation for 140 pounds, beating Jose Ramirez, a former champ. Let's remember, Jose Ramirez was almost undisputed before that Josh Taylor fight. Right? And then we saw him lose to Josh Taylor, which I always said he didn't look like himself in that fight, but that was a massive fight for 140 pounds. And Arnold got it done. And I think a lot of people were taking Jose. I know I was taking Jose, but I thought Arnold could get it done. But that's a tough fight to win. And he finally gets his, a possible title shot. I mean, he's going to be fighting Jack Catterall.
Mm.
So this is massive for Arnold Barbosa Jr. And so for me, he gets the biggest win of the year.
I have one more. This
Okay.
is my award for scariest fighter of the year. This is the person more than anybody else where I watch them fight and I'm like, how the fuck is anybody gonna beat them? Who do you think this is for me?
I don't want to take a guess because I don't know. Like
I
I don't
don't
know
think
who
you're
you're
gonna
gonna
get
pick.
it. I don't think you're gonna get it. I don't think I could give y'all all the time to guess. I don't think anybody would guess who I have for this award. It's not, and we haven't mentioned this person at all. In in this, I don't know, Lord Frieza. Thank you for checking in, but I'm not sure about Tim Bradley. Is this a rumor or something that I should know about? Al the Pal, I always knew Barbosa was good. Nothing new, but I'm surprised. All right. My scariest fighter of the year award, where I don't know who the fuck is going to beat this person. Gabriela Fundora.
That's true.
I
That's
I watch her and I'm just like, bro, who can do anything with this woman? First of all, if you're not watching Gabriela Fundora, she's unified at flyweight. 100 she's a 112-pound weight class. And she's like 5'10 and a southpaw. And it's not like Sebastian Fundora from the standpoint of like she's going to use her size to overwhelm and pressure and just fight on the inside, so to speak. She can fight on the inside, but she also, I think, is more technically sound than her brother is. We'll see, as she levels up in competition, but she's already gotten a few impressive wins this year. She was active. She won twice by knockout in 3 fights, which in women's boxing, that is a big deal because we talked about the shortage of rounds, of timed rounds, because you only get 2 minutes per round. Just 2 stoppages this year in championship fights. Has been a flyweight champion. Is unified. I think she can move up pretty easily. Beat Christina Cruz, which, I mean, shout out to Christina Cruz because New Yorker, but at the same time, got whooped in that fight. Gabriela Fundora is a fucking monster. And
she's next up, yo. She's
I
next
can't,
up.
I consider her more for fighter of the year than I think most other people would have. I feel like it has to be Usyk, but she was very much up there for me in terms of someone you could put in the top 5 very easily. Like pound for pound, she's ridiculous. I have no idea who takes her out in those lightweight classes. No idea.
Yeah, and I'm definitely going to agree with that because she was phenomenal this year. And next up, like when you talk about someone that's next up, that's a name that we are going to be hearing for a minute. Bryan, I think we're all done all of our categories.
Yes, we did 10 each.
Yes, which was crazy.
6 main ones and then 4 each. Otherwise,
we're only supposed to be on for an hour, but we love rocking with you guys so much. Thank you so much for joining our award show on a Saturday night. We know, everyone's got Christmas, holiday stuff still going on, New Year stuff. So we do appreciate you. If you like the content, hit that like and subscribe button. Make sure to follow us at the Mandatory TKO. Bryan, any final thoughts before we get up and out of here? Alabama, you keep. I am not. This makes me like so weirdly nervous to read this, and I thank you for donating twice. But I'm gonna turn red like any minute now. If anyone can see it in the chat, like I'm nervous right now because I don't, I feel like a geek. Can we please just stop? can we just stop and just move on now? Bryan, any final thoughts before we get out of here? I'll put it up on the screen, Al the Pal. Thank you for it. I'm not going to read it because now I'm feeling like kind of embarrassed and shy, which I'm very timid actually. So
he got you to do it.
Yeah.
We'll be back in a couple of weeks. We'll be back in January. Probably not the first week of January. Chantelle's very busy. I'm going to be very busy also /away. And then the next time we come back, we will be, there's going to be hopefully a lot to talk about. The In-A-Way fight will be around the corner. Go watch our old shit. That's what I would say. Continue to donate to the channel. Remember, I will also put this up here again. Email the show, themandatoryshow@gmail.com. We're planning a mailbag episode for early in the year. Maybe we'll do that in the first episode of the year. Who knows? But the live has to be at a good time. But yes, email the show as well. Drop comments for the mailbag. General comments could be about anything in particular. It doesn't have to be just boxing related, although obviously boxing comments would be nice, but it could be about anything. Just don't be weird about it.
Yeah. Thanks so much, guys. Happy New Year. Wish you guys all the best for 2025. Gonna come through with the positive vibes, of course. And thank you so much for rocking with the mandatory. It continues to grow, and it's all because of you guys. So we do appreciate you. And as the show continues, we know you guys will be rocking with us as well. Yeah, that's it. Happy New Year, guys. Thanks so much for rocking out with us. And drop your comments for the awards that we gave us. Let us know if you do agree with them. Good night.